Okay, so today we're going to talk about nouns, pronouns, and other noun-like things, but not in the lame-ass way you're used to hearing these things talked about in your English classes. Instead, we're going to discuss them in a way that's actually useful for fiction writers. So let's hit it. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is make a shift in our minds with regards to what exactly nouns are. For grammarians who take their cues from science, nouns form an inert, lifeless category that includes the names for people, places, things, ideas, animals, etc., etc., etc. In other words, they see nouns as discrete units that may be placed into a box and stowed away in a storage locker. But as storytellers, we can't afford to be so cold to our nouns. Instead, we need to view them as either actors or participants in action. This is because a story is essentially a forum for action, which begins with the first word and ends with the last. Sure, there may be a little bit of stability at the beginning and a little more at the end, but everything in the middle is flux. And every noun plays a special role in this flux. So, what are the roles that our nouns and noun-like things can play? Well, let's take a look at 4 of the main ones. So the first thing a noun can do is perform an action. Here we have the pronoun he throwing something, in this case a rock. As you may have already guessed, your characters will be performing most of the action, although often we also use action verbs to describe the movement of non-characters, such as the rock sailed through the air, which just goes to show you how much action, how much flux there really is. Second, a noun may be acted upon, as we see here. The rock doesn't throw itself, but is being thrown. Now, pretty much any noun in your story can be acted upon, not just inanimate objects. One character, for example, might punch another character. The first character is performing an action, while the second is being acted upon. Just something to keep in mind. Next, a noun can be a place where or a time when an action is performed. In this case, the action being performed is taking place on a rooftop. Now, the wording I'm using here may sound a bit like the old grammarians' people, places, things category that I said we need to shift away from conceptually. But I think you can see the difference. Here, the roof isn't just a place, it's a place where action is taking place. That's the crucial distinction. In storytelling, your noun should be participating in the action as much as possible. Otherwise, what are they doing there? That's a question you need to ask yourself. Now, a fourth possibility is that a noun can be something with which to perform an action. So, in our sentence, the he performs an action with his hand. Of course, more often than not, the noun will refer to some object that isn't a part of the body, such as, I carried the water in a bucket, where the bucket is what I'm using to perform the action. But the idea here should be clear. Nouns may be utilized to perform an action. Of course, there are other roles our nouns may play, and it will be useful for you to consider those roles as you read other people's fiction, so that you may improve your own use of nouns. But if you can get the 4 listed here down pat, you'll be off to a good start. Okay, so let's take a sentence from Charles Dickens's The Old Curiosity Shop, which is a novel I just happened to have laying next to me when I was scripting this video. What you're seeing here is a sentence selected more or less at random, and yet you can see that Dickens is using his nouns in just the manner that I've been describing. Night is when the action is taking place. The old woman is performing an action, and she's performing it in a garden. She meets the schoolmaster at the door, which acts both as a place where the action of meeting is performed, and also, presumably, was an object that had an action performed upon it when it was opened. Dame Wes is technically a proper noun, but in this sentence it is acting as a destination, that is, a location whereat more action will take place. Hopefully the conceptual shift I'm trying to get you to perform now makes sense. If, however, you're still struggling with it, I recommend that you watch the film Dogville starring Nicole Kidman. It's worth checking out merely because it's brilliant and vastly underappreciated. But the reason I'm recommending it at the moment is because all of the objects in the film, that is, all of the things we would label as nouns, take part in the action in multiple ways. It really gives you a sense of what I've been talking about here, of fiction being a forum for action. Anyway, I hope you learned from this video, and if so, like, subscribe, share, and do whatever else you can do to help spread the knowledge. Bye.